Mother 3 is one of the most requested localizations, not in just Nintendo history, but like gaming history point blank. It's a game with a cult following, a legendary fan translation, and a reputation for emotional storytelling that still resonates now, pretty much 2 decades later after the original release, and yet Mother 3 remains officially unreleased outside of Japan. We've waited, petitioned, and somehow all these years later, we're still left with nothing but silence. So today, I wanted to talk about it, why Mother 3, despite all the love, all the passion, will probably never get an official English release, even though it does deserve one. Now, before we deep dive on what Mother 3 is and why it's never going to get an official release, or why I think so anyway, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you're not already, and leave a comment. Let me know if you agree with some of the thoughts in the video today. So let's actually talk about what Mother 3 is, and we'll get to why it's not coming out officially. So Mother 3 is the third and final entry in the cult favorite Mother series, created by Japanese writer Shigesato Itoi. Now, while each game tells a standalone story with different characters, they share a similar tone, gameplay style, blending absurd humor with surprisingly deep emotional storytelling. Fans of Earthbound on the Super Nintendo will find familiar elements here, including offbeat enemies, modern-day setting, and heartwarming character moments, though Mother 3 leans a lot more heavily into its emotional narrative. It really is the more mature version of all of the games in the series. Now, this game is set in the peaceful, rural setting known as the Nowhere Islands. Mother 3 follows a small cast of characters as their quiet world is slowly disrupted by mysterious forces bringing strange technology, military, and change overall. And with its unique blend of charm and melancholy, the story explores identity and loss and the clash between nature and modernization, all wrapped up in this cute, colorful, but often surreal aesthetic. And gameplay-wise, it's similar to what we already have in the series here with Mother 1 and Earthbound, using that traditional turn-based battle system. The world is filled with odd enemies, clever dialogue, and tons of heart. Now, while its presentation might seem lighthearted at first glance, Mother 3 gradually builds into a very poignant and thought-provoking narrative that has left a lasting impression with me even now, years after beating the game. And honestly, it's one of the most emotionally powerful stories in gaming. Now, obviously, we're here today to talk about why this game has never received an official English release, although it is playable with a fan translation, which we'll talk about here soon enough. So let's begin with perhaps the biggest and most complicated hurdle: cultural localization. Mother 3 isn't just any RPG, it's a game that's deeply embedded in Japanese culture, full of linguistic wordplay and satire and emotional nuance that maybe doesn't really translate super well and super cleanly to English. The original script, written by series creator Shigesato Itoi, weaves humor with tragedy in ways that are sometimes subtle, sometimes jarring, and always going to be deeply personal. Translating that script literally risks confusion or awkward phrasing for a Western audience, or maybe somebody who isn't used to how these games play. The main problem here is maybe even just taking too many liberties. It risks losing the original soul of the game. Mother 3 also includes characters like the Magypsies, magical beings with gender non-conforming appearances portrayed in exaggerated or flamboyant manners. In Japanese media, this kind of characterization is relatively common and often played for humor or mystique, but in today's Western climate, it could honestly be seen as insensitive or stereotypical if not handled with great care. And for a company like Nintendo, which is notoriously conservative when it comes to localization and brand image, the margin for error here is razor thin. The game would require not just translation, but a thoughtful, culturally sensitive adaptation. And frankly, that might just be more trouble than they're willing to take on. I mean, we're 2025 right now. Just think of the state of the world and the differing opinions that are out there. It's going to ruffle some feathers, and Nintendo probably, doesn't want to even look at that now, even less so than when the game originally came out. Beyond the challenges of language and culture, Mother 3 dives headfirst into themes that are really dark for a Nintendo-published game. The overall story here is about loss, about grief, corruption, environmental collapse, and the commodification of everything. One of the most pivotal moments involves the death of a child, and that's not something that you really see promoted alongside, Mario and Pikachu as one of their flagship series. So this is very much a dark horse in that regard. There's also subtle commentary on militarization, the erosion of traditions, and even questions about your identity and control. These themes were really powerful and poignant when the game came out in 2006, but today we're in a lot more of a socially aware and reactive online world. I would argue that these concepts would be placed under a microscope in such a way that, again, Nintendo doesn't really want this. Nintendo may fear that releasing Mother 3 now could spark a lot of backlash, not necessarily because of the game's intent, but because of how certain scenes or characters might be perceived, and that's probably a PR storm that they really don't care to handle. So let's shift to something a little bit more boring: business. From a financial standpoint, Mother 3 isn't just a guaranteed win. I mean, the Earthbound series, as beloved as it is, has always been niche outside of Japan. Earthbound on Super Nintendo famously bombed in North America, only to find new life later through emulation or Smash Brothers and word of mouth. I mean, the Earthbound community is a fairly sizable community, but is it the real money-making community that Nintendo would need for something like this? Even when Nintendo did finally re-release Earthbound and Earthbound Beginnings on Switch, they did it, with minimal fanfare. Mother 3, on the other hand, would require full-on localization effort, a new script, testing, quality assurance, and maybe even voice acting or whatever UI changes if they wanted to modernize it to a point. That's a lot of time and money for a game like that, which realistically might only sell to a small group of hardcore fans. It doesn't make sense when Nintendo could realistically spend those resources pushing whatever is happening for the Switch 2, for example, and having more success with less controversy. So it's easy to see why Mother 3 is never really going to make the cut from a business perspective. Now, even if all those things were somehow overcome, there's one more barrier, and that's Shigesato Itoi himself. He's always said that Mother 3 is the end, pretty much the final chapter in a personal story he needed to tell. He's not just the creator, he's the emotional backbone of the entire series, and without his blessing, Nintendo may be hesitant to touch it. It probably is. Reworking or altering the script for a new audience, even with the best intentions, could be seen as violating the spirit of what he originally created. He's been very protective of his work over the years, and rightfully so, and if he views Mother 3 as finished artistically, emotionally, narratively, then any sort of re-release might feel like it's, tampering with sacred ground, for example. And ironically, the very thing that kept Mother 3 alive in the West might also be the thing keeping it from ever being officially released. In the late 2000s, the legendary fan translation by the Starman.net team changed everything. It wasn't just competent, honestly, it was brilliant. Having played that game, you could feel the humor, the heart, the tone. It felt like a real official release. And I would argue to say that it captured Itoi's voice and, thoughts better than any localization ever could. And now that it exists, it's free, it's polished, it's beloved, Nintendo is in a really tough spot. If they release an official version that's better, great, but that also costs a lot of money. And if it's worse or feels off, the fan base is going to tear it apart. Plus, Nintendo can't use the fan translation, so they'd have to start from scratch, which leads to the brutal question: why go through all the effort when the version that most fans already love is just a few clicks away? And you know what? It's already been reported that a lot of people high up in Nintendo of America knew about the translation project. Even Reggie Fils-Aimé said that he had heard about the translation project, so they're aware of it. They know that it exists, and honestly, they're probably thinking, thankfully, these guys did us a solid by, translating this game and putting it out there, because this is a game for that specific community. Maybe not the broader gaming community or fans or whatever that would normally buy a Nintendo game. This is just a little bit different than that. So where does this leave us? I mean, we're looking at a game that's emotionally powerful, culturally specific, and rich with meaning, but also risky and misunderstood and niche. It's a game that's been lovingly preserved by fans, but kept at arm's length by its own publisher. And maybe that's why Mother 3 has become more than just a game. It's like a symbol, it's a myth. A bittersweet reminder that not every story gets the ending we think it deserves, at least not in the way that we imagined, maybe. Still, I mean, people are playing it, they're experiencing it, they're sharing it, not because Nintendo allowed it, but because the Earthbound community has cared enough to make this happen. And maybe, honestly, that's the most Mother thing of all. It just makes sense. Anyway, thanks so much for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not already. We'll see you again on another video next week. Bye-bye.